This will be for the con assignment, interpreting slope and y-intercept for linear models. So for the most part, you don't need to read the write-up for these. Okay, they say the fitted line has a slope of 0.48, and what is the best interpretation of the slope? All right, let's see here. So if the slope is 0.48, you want to make that a fraction. Okay, you can put any number over 1. So you can make it 0.48 over 1. Okay, and we know the formula for slope is the change in y divided by the change in x. Okay, that little triangle is a Greek letter delta. It just means change in. All right, so basically the y goes up by 0.48. When the x goes up by 1. Okay? When the slope is positive, that means both the x and the y increase or decrease together. So let's look at our axes, the labels for the axes on the graph, and see what the x and y represent. Okay, from our graph, we can see that the y-axis, which is the up, down, or vertical axis, represents ear circumference, and the x-axis represents age. Okay, so instead of saying y increases by 0.48, in place of y, I'm going to write age. All right, so I'll erase the y and write age. I'm sorry. For the y, that was ear circumference. Let me fix that. Ear circumference increases by 0.48. And in place of x, I'm going to replace that with age. So ear circumference increases by 0.48 when age increases by 1. All right, let's find the answer that matches that. Let's see. Each 1-year increase in age was associated with a 0.48 millimeter increase in ear circumference. That's it. Okay, again, you don't need to read the write-up. It says the fitted line has a y-intercept of 23. Okay, the y-intercept is basically, if I drew a little mini graph here, the y-intercept is where the line crosses or meets the x-axis. Okay, and no, I'm sorry. The y-intercept is where it meets the y-axis, okay? Y-intercept. So it's where the line meets or crosses the y-axis, okay? The graph, the equation for the line on the y-axis is basically x equals 0, okay? If you were to draw a line right on the y-axis, the equation for that line would be x equals 0. So whenever you see the y-intercept, that is the value of y when x equals 0. All right. So in this case, y equals 23 when x equals 0. All right. So we want to find out what x and y represent by looking at the graph. Okay, let's do that. So on the graph here, let me size this up. On the graph here, the y-axis, y is hours spent on homework, and The x-axis is hours spent on video games. Okay? So the person spends, it says y equals 23. That's hours spent on homework, right? So that means 23 hours of homework and 0 hours of video games. All right. 23 hours of homework, 0 hours of video games. Let's find that one. Joyce spent 23 hours homework, 23. The model indicates that students spend 23 hours video games. No, C is reversed. Model indicates students spent 0 hours video games will average 23 hours of homework. There you go. Okay, so back to slope here. We have a slope of 0.031. All right, make it a fraction. So it's 0.031 over 1. All right, that's the change in y over change in x. All right, when the slope is positive, that means they both increase or decrease together. So y goes up by 0.031. When x goes up by 1. All right, let's see what x and y represent on the graph. Okay, so for the y-axis, the vertical axis, that is rent in dollars per month. All right, and the x-axis is the average income in dollars per year. So in place of y, I'm going to write rent. And in place of x, I'm going to write income. So rent goes up by 0.031 when the income goes up by 1. All right. However, just one thing here. Okay, the rent is just in dollars, okay? I just wanted to make sure it wasn't in thousands of dollars. All right, rent goes up by 0.031 when the income goes up by 1. Let's find that one. Okay, each dollar increase in income was associated with a 0.031 increase in rent. That was it. Okay, and just one thing real quick. I didn't get one where the slope was negative, okay? But let's, for the sake of argument, say this were negative 0.031, okay? And you put it over 1. That means that, well, just remember it's change in y over change in x. That means that y would decrease by 0.031 when x increases by 1, okay? So I got a positive slope for both of my problems. But if you get one with a negative slope, that means one variable decreases while the other variable increases. Okay, so just make a note of that. All right, last one. Fitted line has a y-intercept of 37. Okay, remember the y-intercept is where x equals 0. Okay, because the graph of the y-axis is x equals 0. So this means y equals 37 when x equals 0. All right, so let's see what x and y represent. Go to the graph. The y-axis is score, and the x-axis is study time. Okay, so that means This right here means the score is 37 when the study time equals 0. All right? So someone that didn't study at all would get a score of 37. Let's find that answer. Model predicts study time will increase 37 hours. No. Model predicts score will increase 37 points. No. Model predicts student who scored 0. No. Model predicts students who didn't study at all will have an average score of 37. That's it. All right, so just remember for y-intercept, that's going to be where x equals 0. Okay, and remember for the slope, it's going to be change in y over change in x. All right.